greatness. What does it mean to be a great man? To leave an indelible mark on history? Few figures embody this elusive concept more than Napoleon Bonaparte. Born on a small island, he rose to command empires, a man who reshaped the world through sheer force of will, strategic brilliance, and unrelenting ambition. But greatness is a double-edged sword. Napoleon Bonaparte was born in 1769 on the island of Corsica, a place he would later say has always seemed too confining for his extraordinary soul. From humble beginnings, young Napoleon showed an insatiable appetite for knowledge and an unshakable belief in his own destiny. In an age where birth and bloodline determined one's place in society, Napoleon dared to dream beyond the constraints of his circumstances. He once said, "Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools." For Napoleon, there were no limits, no barriers that could not be overcome through sheer force of will and strategic brilliance. Napoleon's rise to power was nothing short of meteoric. At the age of 24, he was promoted to the rank of brigadier general for his role in the siege of Toulon. By 30, he had conquered Italy, invaded Egypt, and staged a coup to become first consul of France. "There is no such thing as accident," Napoleon once declared. "It is fate misnamed." And indeed, it seemed as though fate had chosen Napoleon for greatness. His tactical genius on the battlefield was unparalleled. His ability to inspire loyalty in his troops was legendary. But it wasn't just military prowess that set Napoleon apart. He was a master of propaganda, a skilled politician, and a visionary reformer. He understood that true power lay not just in conquest, but in the hearts and minds of the people. As ruler of France, Napoleon instituted sweeping reforms that would shape the country, and indeed much of Europe, for generations to come. Chief among these was the Napoleonic Code, a comprehensive system of civil law that emphasized equality before the law, religious toleration, and meritocracy. "My true glory," Napoleon would later reflect, "is not to have won 40 battles. Waterloo will erase the memory of so many victories, but what nothing will erase, what will live eternally, is my civil code." But with great power comes great responsibility, and as Napoleon's influence grew, so too did the weight upon his shoulders. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France. It was a moment of supreme triumph, the culmination of his meteoric rise. But for Napoleon, it was merely the beginning. "Power is my mistress," he once said. "I have worked too hard at her conquest to allow anyone to take her away from me." And work he did. Under Napoleon's rule, the French Empire expanded rapidly, encompassing much of continental Europe. Kings bowed before him. Nations trembled at his approach. At the height of his power, Napoleon controlled territory from Portugal to Poland, from the North Sea to the Mediterranean. But even as he built his empire, Napoleon was driven by something more than mere conquest or glory. "Great ambition is the passion of a great character," he said. "Those endowed with it may perform very good or very bad acts. All depends on the principles which direct them." For Napoleon, those principles were clear: merit over birth, action over idleness, destiny over chance. He believed that every man had a role to play in the grand tapestry of history, and that it was one's duty to fulfill that role to the utmost. "There are only two forces in the world," Napoleon once observed: the sword and the spirit. In the long run, the sword will always be conquered by the spirit. This belief in the power of ideas, of principles, shaped Napoleon's worldview and his actions. He saw himself not just as a conqueror, but as a harbinger of progress, spreading the ideals of the French Revolution across Europe. Liberty, equality, fraternity, these were not just empty slogans for Napoleon, but guiding principles. Yet, as his empire grew, so too did the challenges he faced. The constant warfare, the demands of ruling a vast territory, the mounting opposition from other European powers, all of these began to take their toll. "He who fears being conquered is certain of defeat," Napoleon once said. For him, failure was not an option. Every setback, every defeat was merely a lesson, a stepping stone on the path to ultimate victory. But even Napoleon, for all his genius, was not invincible. The disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812 marked the beginning of the end for his empire. The retreat from Moscow, with its horrific losses, showed that even the greatest of men could be humbled by forces beyond their control. Yet, in the face of this catastrophe, Napoleon's spirit remained unbroken. "The word impossible is not French," he declared, rallying his forces for one last stand. The Battle of Leipzig in 1813, known as the Battle of Nations, saw Napoleon suffer a crushing defeat. Forced to abdicate in 1814, he was exiled to the island of Elba. But for a man like Napoleon, exile was intolerable. In one of the most audacious moves in military history, Napoleon escaped from Elba in 1815 and returned to France, where he was welcomed as a hero. The 100 Days had begun. "Death is nothing," Napoleon proclaimed, "but to live defeated and inglorious is to die daily." For Napoleon, it was better to risk everything on one last throw of the dice than to live in ignominious exile. On St. Helena, stripped of power and glory, Napoleon had time to reflect on his extraordinary life. What is history, he mused, but a fable agreed upon? In his final years, Napoleon dictated his memoirs, seeking to shape how posterity would remember him. He painted himself not as a conqueror, but as a liberator, a man who had sought to bring enlightenment and progress to Europe. "I may have had many projects," he reflected, "but I never was free to carry out any of them. It did me little good to be holding the helm. No matter how strong my hands, the sudden and numerous waves were stronger still, and I was wise enough to yield to them rather than resist them obstinately and make the ship founder." Napoleon died on St. Helena in 1821, but his impact on the world was far from over. His reforms, his legal code, his military innovations, all of these continued to shape Europe and the world long after his death. The Napoleonic Wars had redrawn the map of Europe, sparked nationalist movements, and spread revolutionary ideas far and wide. The concept of meritocracy, of careers open to talent, had taken root. The old order of hereditary privilege had been shaken to its core. But perhaps Napoleon's greatest legacy was the idea he embodied, the notion that a single individual, through force of will and strength of character, could reshape the world. He had shown what was possible when ambition was matched with ability, when determination was coupled with vision. So, what can we, in the modern world, learn from the life of Napoleon Bonaparte? What lessons does his extraordinary journey hold for us? First, perhaps, is the power of self-belief. Napoleon never doubted his own abilities, never shrank from a challenge. "Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools," he said. In our own lives, how often do we limit ourselves? How often do we shy away from greatness? Second is the importance of action. Napoleon was a man of ceaseless energy, always pushing forward, always seeking to shape events rather than be shaped by them. You become strong by defying defeat and by turning loss into gain and failure into success, he said. In a world that often seems to reward passivity and conformity, Napoleon reminds us of the power of bold action. But Napoleon's life also serves as a cautionary tale. It shows us the price of unchecked ambition, the dangers of hubris. For all his achievements, Napoleon died in exile, his grand vision in ruins. What is the meaning of life? Napoleon once mused. Waking, eating, working, resting, and then dying? No, the meaning of life is duty, greatness, and contribution. Perhaps in the end, this is Napoleon's greatest legacy, not the battles won or lost, not the empires built and destroyed, but the idea that each of us has within us the capacity for greatness. As we navigate the complexities and challenges of our own lives, let us remember the lessons of Napoleon Bonaparte. Let us embrace our own inner greatness, our own unique role in the grand tapestry of history. For as Napoleon himself said, there is no such thing as accident. It is fate misnamed. Our destiny is in our own hands. The question is, what will we make of it? This has been Napoleon, The Art of Greatness. Thank you for watching.